Here.
Let's call to order. Our apologies for being a few minutes late. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we've just come out of closed session. We have taken roll call, and we do have a quorum. So, we'll start with the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes for the January 27th meeting?
So moved.
Terry moves.
Second.
Julie seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none. Approval of the minutes for January 27th, the closed meeting.
So moved.
Terry moves.
Second.
Rick seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So moved. February 3rd, special workshop meeting.
Make a motion.
Rick moves that we accept the minutes. Second.
Second. Yeah.
Terry seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to reception of visitors. This is the first reception of visitors. It's intended for any audience member to address the board about any agenda item on which the board will vote. You have 3 minutes to comment. Is there anybody who'd like to comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to recommendations and reports of the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Kupka, and I would ask the board to be sure to speak into the microphone because apparently the tape hasn't been picking up our voice as well recently. Is that correct, Mrs. Browning?
The iPad is blocking it.
I see.
Oh.
First report, Dr. Kupka, is a presentation about PBIS data. The board will recall that several years ago, we started a PBIS initiative in District 99, primarily for social and emotional learning. And one of the obligations of the PBIS program is to collect and share data with important groups, the board being one of those important groups. Mr. Wugazer is going to make a presentation tonight, and we also plan a follow-up presentation later in the year by some of the leaders in the building level of the PBIS program, but this is sort of a macro view by Mr. Wugazer. Scott?
Thank you. Well, first off, I wanted to thank you guys for your time tonight, and I wanted to thank I put a list of our universal team members and our internal coaches at both schools. So I want to thank really the entire district and the students, the staff, our universal team, and our internal coaches as well for their efforts with this program. I'm just going to take you through a little bit of the highlights that we've been kind of working on and kind of give you a little overview then of how we're going to move forward. But obviously our biggest question, I'm a big data person. I love to kind of explore what data is telling us. So that's our first thing. And you can notice that we have, we're looking at our overall referrals. And I went back to 2009, kind of pulled the data. And then in 2011, you can see that's when we were doing our initial planning of Tier 1 for PBIS. And then our implementation years are obviously year 1, 2, and then 2014 is year 3. So what I was doing is just kind of pulling data from 2009 to 2013, kind of comparing those two years. And I wanted to highlight that you can see there's a decrease in the green there for each school. So 30% decrease in overall referrals from South High, and then 35% decrease. So, right there alone are just kind of global data, helps to show us that we're on the right path. Do we still have work to do? Absolutely. But we're excited about what the data is showing us right now. And then I wanted to take you through just some specific categories, just to kind of look at what I did is through the data that was pulled, just kind of took the highest categories to really of office discipline referrals. So you can see that the categories are on the left there with the first one acts disruptive to the environment, tardies. The cell phone is the misuse of cell phone and cellular devices and things like that. Failure to serve detention, unexcused attendance. So you can notice our numbers are high, but what I want to highlight in the green is the decreases. So from the year 2009 to the year 2013, we've seen, and then south is the column, the first column, 3 columns on your left, and then north is the columns on your right. But you can see the tremendous amount of decrease that we've had just from, really our PBIS program, our efforts that our staff are taking. It's not just the universal teams and the internal coaches that are working hard, it's our staff and support staff. So I want to thank everyone for that. And then really, probably the biggest thing that we've been working on is that, and I don't have it really outlined on the slide, but PBIS, recognizes schools for their efforts in implementation. One of the things that we've been kind of lacking is kind of an overall data collection from a district standpoint. So that's something that I've worked with the teams with that. I want to thank Rod Rousseau for his efforts because he's really been the architect of putting the vision together with our database, and so far it's been amazing what we've been able to create. So the first kind of bullet talks about the creation of our new data system that Rod worked on. What we're able to do now is we're able to look at obviously the overall data, but we're also looking at the overall data by student count, looking at breakdown by every grade level. So we're looking at, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. We've broken it down in those grades by male, female, by a lot of different demographics, such as the free and reduced lunch, IEP students, ethnicity, things like that. So right now we're able to really crunch a lot of data that we weren't able to do before. So that's one thing that we're pretty proud of this year. Another thing is we've really worked on getting teacher input. So we have an overall database, and now we're looking to, we've actually surveyed all the departments to get a sense of what kind of data would be useful for them in the classroom and what do they want to see. Our charge since the beginning of the year has really been, okay, how do we show data in a simplified way? And so that's, we're trying to seek their input of what they want to see and then try to show it in a really user-friendly way. So another challenge that we had is that we weren't communicating the data very well. So we made a commitment that once we get this kind of rolling, that our goal is to share it every month to our, our internal teams, like our universal teams, our internal coaches. I'm going to share it with our cabinet. We'll have exec council, we'll share it there. And then we, we're in the process of developing a plan, with the teachers of how we're going to share that information to them. And then we also would like to start, share the information to our students, because really, that's where the buy-in, I think, is going to really help our, our supports and that for the students. So, and then obviously sharing it with you guys on a regular basis. So. And then the last point that I wanted to talk about is, PBIS has the 3 tiers. We're in tier 1, obviously, in our 4th year of implementation. And next year we're looking then obviously to implement tier 2 for the first year. And we're excited about that. And our data really was designed this year to really give us all the information that we're going to need to analyze to help drive then tier 2. So we're excited for a rollout in the fall. We're really excited for what we've done so far and accomplished, and we're really pleased that our group will come back in May and present and give you kind of the highlights of what they're working on a more day-to-day basis. So, do you guys have any questions in terms of? Well, let me go over, I guess, our 3 keys. This is kind of what our challenge has been: is really collecting and analyzing the data as a district. We were really struggling with both schools kind of doing it in their own way, and it just wasn't very consistent. And so that's what we're, working on, obviously. And then the communication part. How are we going to communicate that out? And then really, what are we going to do with the data to support the students? So those are our 3 things that we really kind of are focusing on. And obviously open it up to any questions. And again, I just want to thank our teams for all their hard work.
I'll start. First of all, congratulations.
Yeah.
It was a quick presentation, but I'm sure it took many, many, many hours of all those people to do it. I did have one question about the data, though.
Sure.
If you could go back.
Yeah, I can go back.
And I should have asked you before the meeting, and I apologize.
I think I can go back. Which way do you go?
This, right there. So are those,
oh, there it goes. A little
are
bit.
those referrals for individual students, or are those referrals for
It's the-
episodes?
It's the overall episode. So,
Okay.
for example, what we're doing with our database actually, that, when working with Rod, we actually have by each category, like if you look at, let me go through. If you look at here, if tardies were 304, we would also have, that's the incident. So there was 300 referrals written, but it could reflect 250 students, or it could be 5 students. So we have that available to look at, yeah. That's going to be critical to our tier 2, because we need to know what students are, if there's one student committing multiple. So really, these are just incidents, not by student.
Okay. Because it would be interesting to know as well as what percentage of the student body it represented
Yeah,
by
and
the
we're-
individual student.
Yeah, and what we're doing with the data, that we don't have the database quite done, but we're going to have it so that we can see the percentages by category or classification. So if it's, by IEP student, we'll know that if it's, 5 out of the 300 IEP students at, say, North High. So we'll be able to do that in all the categories. So that's just part of the process of what we're building, and so we're really excited about it. I just took a snapshot of where we're kind of going. If you're really interested in seeing the entire database, it's a big, huge Excel thing that comes out that has all the categories. It's pretty cool. So
That was my question. Can I bootleg on, we got this slide up?
Absolutely.
You showed a slide that said at North there was 2,400 referrals, but these only add up to 1,100. What are some of the other referral categories?
Oh, yeah. The categories, there's a list of, I think, I don't know, there's like 20-some, I think, categories. So there's let me just pull up and I can tell you some of the category names.
The other
There's
1,200.
some that are
Yeah, there's a lot of different categories that pull up.
Yeah.
5.
There's,
Are those numbers smaller then?
these are the highest numbers, yeah.
By
All the
high.
other ones are a lot smaller, yeah.
There's so many categories that would add up for another 1,200.
Correct. Yep. So
Be a category.
I'm sorry.
Fighting.
yeah, fighting, like possession of tobacco,
Would be considered the more serious, is that?
harassment, bullying. There's there's the category A and B offenses. Our database has all that. I just pulled the numbers that were the highest in the categories, just the top 5. So you're correct. If you add up all the other ones, they equal, the total amount. So, and like I said, if you want to, I can email out to, Mark the database that gives you all the codes, just so you can get a sense if you want to see that. It just isn't probably, it really goes across the screen to the right pretty far because of all the 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade.
We trust you.
I just wondered where the other
Yeah.
where the other data was. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, we could be correcting 2 students and drop several percentage points.
Yeah, and really the goal is to analyze for tier 2 then when we start in the fall to say which students, are violating the discipline code a number of times, and then really work with those students on a more individualized basis. Because, the PBIS lesson plans that they're doing, that's for the entire, student body and the booster lessons and things like that. But then tier 2 will focus on more individual.
I did have a question. Can you refresh our memories as to what Tier 2 involves?
Yeah, what we're going to roll out, Tier 2, the first PBIS has kind of outlined a map, and for Tier 2, they want you to start with a check-in, check-out. So we're developing a process of checking in, checking out with a staff member, and then how we're going to collect data on that. So that's kind of will be our implementation in the fall.
So we have a student who has demonstrated they have a history of getting referrals,
Correct.
and they check in with an adult every day at the beginning of the day, and they check out with the adult.
Yeah.
How many issues they had during the day. That's sort of the.
Correct, yeah. So, yep, we identify the students exactly that are having difficulty with attendance, with behaviors, things like that, and then we're going to do a check-in, check-out. We're just trying to finalize the process of how that's going to look and how we're going to collect data with that. But we're excited about it, so.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yeah.
Are you making these improved statistics available to the students too, so they can all see?
Yeah, I mean, right now, you guys are really the first to kind of see the data because the database we're really still in the midst of trying to get all our categories to show our percentages and things like that. But, and then the teachers have asked for a certain set of data points. And we're trying to be consistent, so we're working at both schools to try to get that feedback from the teachers right now. And then we're going to then use that to supply that information to the teachers. And then one of the ideas was, because we can get the data by 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade, is that we could almost have, class competitions of, how do you, and that's one of the things PBIS recommends, is to try to involve the students and engage them, and, kind of a competition of who can get the lowest amount of referrals. And then we're also, one of the things that PBIS doesn't look at specifically, but we felt was important, is to look at some of the positives too. So we're trying to go through right now and identify what are some of the positive statistics that we want to show, because really all this is, sure, it's great to say we have a reduction of referrals, but we still have those referrals. How can we start to demonstrate to the students what are some of the positive things that we can report out on? And then we're using those, like, for example, and again, the schools will come in and talk more about it, but I know when I was walking through North High, they had a chart out, and we're trying to, like, I purposely use the green because we're trying to use a kind of a stoplight system of, the red, the yellow, and the green to identify data trends. And we're going to try to then roll that out to our students, kind of so that they can be, and the staff can be really familiar with, then when they see a green, they know it's been reduced. If they see a yellow, then it's kind of a warning. And if it's red, that means the data kind of went. So we're purposely trying to do that as well.
Great,
Very cool.
very encouraging.
Any other questions or comments? Mike?
Quick comment. I wonder if we really realize how wonderful this is. It's pretty it's pretty easy to look at it and go, hey, we've got less disruption and less tardies, and we all know that it's better to not have those things. But if you think about what that really means, acts disruptive to educational environment. So when those disruptions don't happen, the educational environment is improved, and learning increases,
It's all about.
and teaching improves. And so, as much as this is something this PBIS program is mandated, something that we have to do, another example of something that we're doing really well, and it benefits everybody in the buildings, and it's something that really can't, there's no overstating it here, and it's something that I hope the community really notes, because this is the result of a lot of hard work on behalf of our staff and our students, who are obviously getting the message.
And responsive.
So yeah, respectful, responsible, engaged. So really cool stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Any more? Textbook recommendations?
Dr. Cupia, I'm going to pass the floor to Ms. Zaccardi. She's going to review the textbooks we're recommending for purchase for next year.
Okay, as per the memo, we have 6 textbooks that we would like to put on display for public comment. I'll talk a little bit about each textbook, but overall, the textbook requests and these recommendations are coming for 3 main reasons. One is for AP course, advanced placement courses. As you may recall from last year, the College Board has to approve courses. They approve a teacher's syllabi, the resources, materials, so on and so forth. And one of the aspects of that approval is what resources you're using, specifically the textbook. And what we have found is that the College Board will not approve textbooks that are 10 years old or older, obviously.
Okay.
So we have started to look at our AP courses to ensure that they will indeed be approved, and of course, consistent with our board goals to increase enrollment in our AP courses. So 3 of the courses relate to AP specifically. We also are seeing textbook proposals coming in specifically for Common Core, which is the case with math, and then also just to update our textbook. So those are the 3 overall overarching reasons that I'm recommending these textbooks. So the first one is for AP Music Theory. You may recall that this is a course that was approved for next year. We've taught music theory for years, but we are now teaching the advanced placement. So we're revising that course to meet the requirements of the College Board. The current text is from copyrighted from 2004. It is the 5th edition. We will not be able to have that course approved because it will exceed the number of years. We're required to align with the College Board expectations, and this new edition does just that. It is, by the way, on the College Board recommended list for music theory. Popular Music Styles is a course that we typically have a small number of students that take. Doesn't necessarily been run every year, but the text that we are currently using is 18 years old. So I'm recommending
Pop
that we
music's changed a
update,
little, yeah.
especially popular music styles, just to be
Any
more
good ones on the
modern.
cover? What? We digress. Okay, Gina?
The current text ends in the 1980s, so we would like something that is obviously closer to modern day. We did postpone this one last year. It was actually one that came to the CNI group last year, but because we had so many textbooks moving forward, we asked to postpone it a year. So that's why I'm bringing this one forward this year. The Math 2, 2S, and 2H, which is 2 honors, and then our extended period Math 2 support class. Same sequence as last year when we adopted the Math 1 textbooks. It's the same publisher, it's the integrated model, it's aligned to the Common Core, and it will be consistent with the Math 1 series. So students are familiar with the textbook and the way that it's laid out. For AP Environmental Sciences, you may recall that's a new course for next year. This is one of the textbooks that is on the AP College Board recommended or example textbook list. It is aligned to the next generation science standards, and it is an inquiry-based curriculum, which is consistent with the standards and with our focus in terms of the curriculum. AP Spanish, our current book has a 1997 copyright. There isn't really a recommended textbook list from the AP College Board for either French, which is also another textbook we're recommending, or Spanish. However, we did some research to ensure, or to find out, I should say, what other schools are using. We've attended workshops and conferences, and this is one of the books that many surrounding schools indeed is using. It is aligned to the new curricular framework because the College Board did revise the Spanish curriculum for AP, and this is aligned to that. It is a thematic approach. It's aligned to the 6 overarching themes. And this book rose to the top in terms of our study because it is a challenging level in terms of reading, but it is accessible for our students. So we feel it is something that our students will be able to handle and yet challenge them, as should be the case in an AP course. Our AP French, French 4 and French 5 will use the same textbook. Keep in mind that students would typically take 1 or 2 of those courses. So for example, a student who comes into French 1 as a freshman, as a senior might take French 4, or they might take AP French, but they wouldn't take both. If a student comes in as a freshman in French 2, they could matriculate to French 5. So they could potentially take 2 years using the same textbook. So it is used for all 3 courses, but a student wouldn't necessarily take all 3 of those courses. The current book is copyrighted from 2005, so again, we're in the AP issue for the AP French. The College Board implemented with French, the same as it did with Spanish, a new framework, and this textbook is in alignment with the new framework. It is used by many surrounding schools. As I said, in the languages, we don't have an approved textbook list. If you actually look on the College Board site, it says that there are numerous texts that will meet the curriculum. But it is used in many surrounding schools and across the country. It also is taught to those 6 thematic units, which is the case with the AP Spanish, and it also was the book that rose to the top in terms of a reading level that will challenge our students, but that we feel is accessible for all 3 levels of French. So those are the 6 textbooks that we'd like to move forward for the public review, and we feel meet meet our needs and are in alignment with the district goals and with Common Core and need to be updated.
Okay. Any concerns or comments?
Gina
Rick?
or Mark, I don't know. What is generally the life cycle that we replace books? 6 years, 5 years?
I think it depends.
We,
Really?
Well, obviously, one of the books we're replacing is,
18 years. That's why I was concerned.
Yeah, we don't-
Are other books 18 years old and 15 years old?
it really depends on the, the applicability of the subject, how dynamic it is, how much it changes. Science probably changes a lot.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
There are other things that don't change so much.
If it's not AP, do we review it?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've purchased books that are several years, the copyright several years old, simply because it's the best fit for our program.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that we may have at one time in the cycle that said we're going to replace the books every 5 years or 7 years. I don't think we have such a thing now. In part because that's a very expensive proposition. In part because we no longer receive. Up until a few years ago, we used to receive a textbook for every period. Every so many years, we'd receive a textbook from the state of Illinois per student. We no longer have that. So, I don't think we don't have a cycle as we did at one time, or that we were replacing every book over 5 years or 7 years.
Is it reviewed by department chair?
I think it's based on our needs and what we think is appropriate at the time.
And are we using more supplemental books or that are a little more up to date? Let's say we're in between cycles and,
I think it really depends on the area, as Dr. McDonald said. It really depends on the content area. We've always used supplemental materials, but obviously with students having access at home, in school, mobile labs, so on and so forth to the internet, you can find information much more easily than we could even 10 years ago. And so that does change our need. But yes, we definitely use supplemental materials. I would say our curriculum is not, by and large, not tied to a textbook. It's not as if on day 3 you have to be on page 3.
Good.
I mean, that's not a curriculum.
Any other questions or concerns? Did you?
I just wondered what cycle.
Okay. Thank you, Gina. I think we're going to take action in a little while on this.
Thanks.
Okay, Freedom of Information requests.
We had one Freedom of Information request that was completed very late last week, is not in the board packet. So we will put that in next month's packet. It was fulfilled by Mr. Stalen, but the text of that will be in next month's packet.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, does any member of the board want to discuss anything on the consent agenda further?
No.
Do we have a motion to accept the articles on the consent agenda? Julia moves.
Second.
Terry seconds. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Oh, we do for consent, thank you.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Terry Pavasich,
Aye.
Rick Pavanato,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye.
Mike Davenport,
Aye.
Keith Mattoon,
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Thank you.
Nancy, I wanted to comment on the field trip for the North High Band, I think.
Tour.
Going to, am I correct, they're going to play at Carnegie Hall? Whoa. I'd like to go along.
Yeah.
Would that put me down for that? That's really an honor. That's really wonderful.
Okay, moving on, approval for recommended textbooks to go on display.
Actually,
Oh, excuse
Dr.
me.
Kupka, we have 2 auditors here, is that correct? And in the interest of allowing them to move on to their business, I'd like to
Absolutely.
make a slight change in the order of the recommendation for action
Mm-hmm.
and allow them, are they going to speak first, Mr. Stalen, or are
Yes.
you going to speak
Well,
first?
I'll introduce
Okay.
collectively. This was something that was on the parking lot. We noticed that there was an interest of some of the board members at least, and I thought why not? Be very, very happy to have our auditors here. These Susan and John are from Miller Cooper. They've have direct oversight into our audit. They approve all the work that's done in the field here, and I think they just like to give you both, speak to a different topic. I think John is going to cover the CAFR itself and the financial statements that you see online. I have a copy, beautiful copy here, of course, but they'll discuss that, and then I think Susan will talk about the information that's provided to the Board of Education and the management letters. So, John?
So you guys don't actually have the copy of the CAFR with you, but it's been provided to you, I
Yeah, it's
believe?
online and it's electronic.
Gotcha. So I won't refer to a bunch of the page numbers, but I'll just go over it at a high level. The school receives a Certificate of Achievement for Financial Reporting from the from the Association of School Business Officials. It's a very prestigious award. Our opinion for the financial statements for the year ended not December 31st, I'm thinking of our year ends now. June 30th, 2013, the district received what's referred to as an unmodified or clean opinion. Basically states that we believe that they are materially correct in all material respects. Within the financial statements, there's a section called the Management Discussion and Analysis, which is prepared by Mark. It's really kind of the cliff notes to the whole financials. It contains a lot of summarized financial information. It's very useful to a lot of readers. Gives you a lot of information without having to go through all of the details. The statements include 2 sets of actual financial statements, government-wide statements and fund-level statements. The difference being government-wide statements are recorded on the full accrual basis of accounting, where certain things such as capital assets would be expended on a fund level, are capitalized and shown as an asset on the government-wide level, and certain things such as long-term debt the proceeds would be considered revenue in a fund level statement and would be considered a liability or to be paid down in the future in the fund level statements. The financial statements also contain a significant number of footnotes, which provide you summarized information, significant accounting policies, everything to basically support the front statements. Further on in the back there are other supplemental information statements and other required supplemental information statements, including pension funding progress statements, combining statements, and a statistical section. That's basically a brief highlight of the financial statements. I'll have Susan go through the letters, and then we'll ask you if there's any questions at the end.
So we issued 2 letters. The first letter that I'm going to go through at a high level is our required communications to the board. Our responsibilities as your external auditors is to express an opinion that the financial statements are presented in all material respects with government auditing standards and generally accepted audit principles. And as John mentioned, we gave an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level assurance that the district could receive. As part of our audit, we do consider the internal controls of the district, and we're required to put in writing any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses that we identified. And we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. We did identify 2 insignificant items, more of best practices, that we put in a separate letter as well. In addition to the basic financial statements and the notes that are included in the CAFR, there's other information. We review that information and make sure it's materially consistent and there's nothing inconsistent with what we're reporting in our opinion in the basic financial statements. Our plan, timing, and scope of the audit was consistent what we laid out in our engagement letter. Our firm and the engagement team is independent of the district. And all significant accounting policies and estimation processes were disclosed in the financial statements, and we review all the significant estimates to make sure management's methodologies are reasonable and the assumptions are reasonable. On pages 3 and 4 of this letter, it lists a number of GASB statements that were implemented by the district during fiscal year 2013. None of them had a significant impact on the district. The most significant one is it changed the statement of net assets to the statement of net position, so it was more of a name change in the statements. And then there is on page 5 a list of GASB statements that will be adopted in the future by the district. None of them are significant other than GASB 68, which will require that the unfunded pension liability recorded in the government-wide statements in the statement of net position. We encountered no difficulties in dealing with management. We received a lot of transparency, all the documents that we requested, they provided us on a timely basis. We are also required to disclose if there were differences that we identified during our audit process that did not get recorded in the financial statements. We would disclose those to you, but there were no differences that were not recorded. There were no material audit adjustments. We had no disagreements with management, and there's no other significant issues that we feel we need to report. As your auditors, I want to make it aware to the board that throughout the year, if you have any questions or concerns, Mark has our information to feel free to call us. We also do, on a random basis, as part of our planning process, call a board member and ask them inquiries. And I talked to Nancy as part of the fiscal year 2013 process. Does anybody have any questions?
Good news.
Well, no questions. I'd like to say two things. Thank you. And I'd like to say to Mark Stalen, congratulations. And thank you very much, you and your staff, for jobs well done.
Well, I was giving some credit here to Miller Cooper is a very good firm, very strong governmental background. So if issues come up during the year we have concerned about, we talk it out. I'll call and ask how they would suggest treating a certain thing. It's pretty rare, but when it does come up, we have a lot of trust in their ability. They audit a large number of school districts. It's from my background, it's a very unique area, and a lot of people can do it as a side job and give you an opinion on it, but we get a very high quality audit. We had a very good audit team here the last few years, so I feel real comfortable with them myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very reassuring to the community too, I think, hearing from our auditors in this way. So thank you.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and approve the comprehensive annual financial report.
Do we have a movement to do so? A motion?
Also move.
Mike moves.
Second.
Terry seconds.
Mike Dav-
We have to do the roll because it's financial. Go ahead.
Mike Davenport,
Aye.
Terry Pavasich,
Aye.
Rick Pavanato,
Aye.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye.
Keith Mattoon,
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Thank you again.
Now we'll go to textbooks.
Now textbooks. Okay, we have discussed textbooks. Is there any more discussion? Do we have a motion to approve the recommended textbooks to go on display?
I so move.
Mike moves.
Second?
Julia seconds. I think here we can just take a voice count. No?
So we're buying these.
Yeah,
Mike
That's not what my Rogers Rule of
Aye.
Order said we could do, but that's okay. We'll take a vote.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Rick Pavanato,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye.
Keith Mattoon,
Aye.
Terry Pavasich,
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye.
And those will be put on display. It'll be more than 30 days because the March board meeting falls earlier than 30 days, so we'll go ahead and do these at the April board meeting.
Okay. Okay, student fees?
Ready, Mr. Stalen?
Ready. Greg will maybe put the schedule up there for you. Put these off. As you can see, there's, in my memo, there's a recommendation that we do not increase the fees again this year. In the blacked out section there of 290, just to refresh everybody's memory from last year, we combined the lab fees, which there's a note on the bottom. On average, each student incurred 3.6 lab fees during the 12-13 school year, which would be just under $300 if you were to add that to the 290 registration textbook fee on a combined basis. So by going to a $290 fee, we actually, on average, slightly reduced the fees last year, but it was really just a reorganization of it. It really has helped. There was a little bit of reduction in revenue from that, but it has helped in the administrative level. We don't issue lab fee refunds like we have to, so there's some time savings there, and we think it was a good move on our part as well as for the parents. But the recommendation this year is not to increase the fees. We're right in the middle of, we could certainly justify increasing the fees with what's happening at the state level and reduction in state aid. becoming not yet certain, but probable or very possible. And just trying to maintain a stable educational program, it would, make sense for us to do that. But there's also, we aren't out of the woods, our community is not out of the woods with this economy yet. They're hurting just like we are, and so we thought we would just keep it, a recommendation to keep it stable, and not make any changes this year. Another factor I didn't put in my memo, but it's kind of in the back, I think, of our minds and perhaps yours. If we do have some kind of technology rollout down the road or two, we might have a different structure to have to go to pertaining to that. So we're just going to try and keep this on an even keel, we think, for the next year or two if we can. So that's the recommendation, is just to hold the fees constant.
Okay, any discussion?
I thought we were gonna also see about a family type.
I have information on that if there's an interest. We did do a survey, a consideration, or at least in terms of we looked at our data to see what possibilities we would have, or in terms of a data break for capping fees for certain individuals. And based on, and Rod isn't here to speak to it, he did a search for us, and there really is only one family that has 4 students in the same household enrolled in our school at the same time. I realize you've got a communication on that. And there are 36 households that have 3 students all in high school at the same time with us right now. There's been some discussion of that, and there's, one way to look at it is that is a big burden. It's, about $1,200 in just the registration fee for that one family. However, there are a number of families that have 4 kids that may not all be in school at the same time. And then at one point, if it's kind of a circumstance of the timing of that for that one family.
We do a similar thing with athletic fees, though, don't we? Right?
We do it across, we do it across the board for.
Excuse a third one if
it's one student.
Student does.
Well, I'm just saying,
yes,
there's parallels there in terms of what we're talking about.
The thing is, that's if one student is taking 3 sports, we would, no matter how many kids they have in the family.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 3 kids in your family and they're each taking 2 sports, you would pay 2 for each of those kids.
Mm-hmm.
So the number of students in a household doesn't impact the capping that fee. That's just maximizing it to one student.
One student.
That you have someone who's, only taking 3 sports, you would only have to pay for 2 and be capped individually,
So might it be reasonable then to have maybe a payment plan for those families that may request it for 2 or more students?
And we do. We have that for anybody.
Is there a process where they could show hardship and that fee would be waived then also?
Absolutely. And they indicated in this one family, we haven't, they don't qualify for free or reduced, they don't have, but any family, whether or not they qualify, well, if you qualify for free and reduced, you're waived. But any family other than those individual families could extend their payments over the course of the year or over time. We also did implement, not that it's, but a credit card option, a charge option for individuals, so they could pay it at a different rate too as well. So there's a couple different options for them, and we would extend that.
Would we do that without a fee attached? Or would there be a fee attached if they chose that option?
You mean the credit card? Or
no,
we don't charge anything to extend their payments. We just stretch it out.
How long do we stretch it out?
Over the course of the year. So we would allow them to pay it over the course of the year.
12 monthly installments then.
Yeah, and I think, really.
Until they graduate.
Individuals know that if they don't pay, it's really, we try not to let that happen because it becomes a very expensive graduation fee at that time if they wait until that point. We do give them those options. Not saying it couldn't be done, and I'm not even saying that the impact would be dramatic, but it's actually becomes a bit more of an administrative thing. Other than the one family, we could write a check back or something, But to retool the registration software and things to start capping there'd be costs involved with that. our discussion hasn't been deep. We wanted the board to just talk this out and get your opinion out. But it has been just a kind of a circumstance of the timing, because there are many families that have 4 kids that have gone through our system and would have not gotten a break. It just would have happened over a 6 or so year period or something like that. So that's, be happy to have you discuss it or give us direction if you want us to do it. The impact, you're talking 36 students. If we capped it at 3, would maybe be, I think I have a number here, it's something in the tens, it's like about $11,000. So it's not a big financial hit, but it would be.
Well, it's the multiplication of everything all the way through too, right? So we're talking about, someone with multiple children, they're looking at multiple registration fees, multiple potential driver's ed fees, multiple athletic fees, and if the kids are involved in, at least each one's involved in 2 sports, and you've got, it becomes a huge burden. I still feel that just on principle, the idea behind fees for public education, it just doesn't sit well with me. And we've had this discussion before too, and in fact, I think, as I recall last year, this amounted to about an average of $8 per student in terms of by doing the consolidation, and so it really was a win-win, and definitely like seeing that, and would like to see us work at more opportunities like that. I don't know where they are, but continual effort to try to wean ourselves off the dependency on these fees. The whole community benefits from good schools, not just the people who at this moment are receiving a direct benefit by having their child there, and so the nature of the public schools be funded through our tax base, and everybody has a stake in that, and so I think that having, when we have a situation where you have multiple kids in the school, it's placing quite a burden on these families. And full disclosure, I'll be one of them. I mean, next year I'll have 2 at South. The year after that I'll have 3 at South. The year after that I drop back down to 2, and the year after that I go back up to 3 again. So, and if they weren't all there at once, I get the idea that eventually I'd have to pay all that anyhow, but a lot easier to pay that over a course of 10 or 15 years as opposed to have it all packed in. I really think we ought to have some consideration for a cap for families. Where we set that, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that it should necessarily be based on the number of students, but maybe something looking at the total amount that's being paid, and I don't know, but I do know that something about this just doesn't feel good to me, and when we all got that email from that family at North High School, I really felt for them and thought, yeah, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense that they should have to be coming up with thousands of dollars for their kids to go to school at North High. So isn't there something that we can do? Is there something we can talk about with this?
Have we gone as far as surveying other districts? I think we did that several years ago when we were considering this same thing.
We found that with the activity, that's why the athletic fee, and that's why we made a change there. It wasn't uncommon, where actually we haven't surveyed the registration
Might be
fees.
something to consider going forward.
Well, it's getting to be difficult because you have almost, we've grown in the amount of families that fall under
Free and reduced lunch.
free and
right.
reduced. And you're looking at approximately, we're getting close to 30% of our families. And if the state is only funding us at 82% of those, a large portion of the fees and what's keeping our schools afloat right now is our taxpayers.
That's right. Property tax.
Property taxes. Okay, and that does become quite a burden for families that do have multiple children who are already paying, the taxes. Now they're sending their kids. They don't fall under the free and reduced, and it does seem to be a bit of an extraordinary burden to them and then not getting, like I said, not getting reimbursed from the state, from some of the families that don't have the property taxes. So, I mean, it is something that we should be looking into. I mean, I don't have the answer either, but
I think one of the things we've talked about is exploring corporate sponsorships and some other things, and I think it doesn't all have to go to athletics. I think some of it, I mean, if it's $11,000, I mean, I would think that a corporation could write something off to a check with $10,000. I mean, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility if we're actively pursuing those things. I think it's admirable that we're keeping our fees down, but I think there are some instances where, families just can't do it. And this notion of public education, how free is it? And things add up. And it's not that these costs are unreasonable. And I think we all can agree that you should pay for services that are above and beyond, like an athletic fee and driver's ed and things of that nature. But we should give some consideration. I think we should, as I've said, every single year, explore alternate revenue streams to make that a reality.
But for today, are we ready to go forward with approval of student fees?
I so moved that they would stay at this level. I'll second.
Terry moves, Julie seconds. Do you want to have more discussion, Mike, or?
I'd like to see a cap for families with 3 students or more.
Well, I think that's a discussion that I'm not sure
I guess I would offer, because we're not increasing the fees.
Mm-hmm.
We're just maintaining them. The board could vote tonight to maintain the fees, and then we could continue the discussion about relief or a cap at the next meeting. Because I think they are sort of separate questions, even though they're the same topic.
Okay.
It seems to me that it does require, even though we talked about it before, a little more study, maybe a survey of what other districts are doing, what patterns are.
I don't think we need to go to other districts to understand what the need is in our own district. I really don't. I don't think we need to belabor the point to the point that, look, if we have certain families because we're hitting 30-35% at free and reduced, if that's a concerning need in our district, then we address it. I don't think we need to look at Hinsdale because they're not a like district in that manner. So, if it works for us, I think we should just have some more information and be able to make an informed decision. But I agree with the superintendent's proposal. We can vote on this tonight and have an addendum at a later date.
you put a task force or something.
I agree, but I also would like to say I agree with Julia's point in that somebody else may have come up with a solution. Maybe not Hinsdale, but maybe
Somebody might
Bolingbrook.
have had a great idea. We don't know.
So for tonight, are we ready to approve student fees for 2014, 2015, and move the issue of capping or identifying alternate revenue streams to the parking lot?
I mean, with the agreement that we would look forward
Yes.
to a small task force or somebody, our administration looking into ways that would further help some of our families at the.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is that amenable to people?
Yeah, I don't think it should be a parking lot issue. I think it should be an actionable item within the next couple months.
Well, I think that's what Nancy's proposed.
That's my proposal.
Meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I very much support
We might
that.
not be ready at the next meeting, but within the next few meetings.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So,
I will.
so moved, Terry moves?
I already moved.
It's already moved and seconded, and then we had discussion. So
So,
we're closing discussion and going to the vote.
Take the vote.
Take the vote.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
No.
Rick Pavanato.
Aye.
And Nancy Kupka.
Aye. Keith?
I'm
Mattoon?
sorry. Sorry, Keith Mattoon. I apologize.
No.
Okay, summer camp fees?
Stalen will do this again.
I'll gingerly walk into this next topic, which is raising fees, but it's summer camp fees or summer sports programs fees, and I think it is a bit of a different animal.
Totally different animal.
The district has some very, very good programs that they run over the summer, run largely by district coaches, whether they're direct employees or they're coaches not directly hired otherwise through the district, and also for a lot of students that they recruit that come in and actually are paid. And it's a good leadership opportunity for them as well as a learning experience. Many programs, 3,900 kids participated last summer, and we weren't even at full throttle with the pools, the south, all the swim programs had to be at north because of south being shut down. So there's quite a few students in our community that benefit from these programs. And we did a survey because the athletic directors had asked me if we would consider raising fees. I said I would bring it to the board. Have not changed those fees since 2008. We surveyed the communities around us. We are on the low side, definitely on the low side of the range of where everybody else is. And one of the key benefits for this programming is that since the beginning of these programs, when we started offering them, 15% of the program fees are retained in the schools for their supply accounts for those athletic programs. So there's a benefit that comes back to the schools when we do this. It helps supplement it a little bit. And the fact that these our programming costs are very reasonable now, and even after this would probably still be in the low end of the surrounding areas, we think it's appropriate to give an increase. The approach was to give a $10 across the board increase. That's what the athletic directors recommend. Mike, I believe I responded to everybody to Mike's email today, which had indicated that perhaps do it as a percentage basis. It doesn't work out quite as smoothly to do that, but because it's based on the number of programs that are actually charging $45. A lot of the pool programs are $45, and we thought that they could support a $10 increase to $55. It would still be in the reasonable range, but to start adding a percentage increase that would be even more than $10 to the high end might make it less affordable for some families. And so there was a conscious decision. It might be the next round, a few years it would be just because depending on where everybody else is around us, that we would do it on a percentage basis. But it just seemed easier to administer with just a $10 increase across the board, and we would still be in a good, reasonable range for all the programs. So that's the recommendation. They'd like to do that. And they do want to start registering and promoting the summer program, so that they were asking if we could have a decision on this tonight.
Questions?
I think it's fine to increase the fee. My just quick question is and maybe you can't answer this, but how is the community feeling about the results of these programs? Are they pleased with them? Are they, has there been some feedback, or do they do a survey at the end?
I don't think
I know
they do.
you probably don't know the answer.
I don't think they do, and I don't have any, but the participation is so strong, I have to think that they're well received.
I always like to get feedback because, you never know. I mean, since our kids are participating and helping with the coaching or whatever, I just want to make sure that people are feeling that they're getting their money's worth. I don't want them to.
Yeah, part of the rationale for this is really to build up our own sports programs, and so I'm sure that they are lavished. I mean, I know that the kids are, that this is for them to get an introduction. A lot of these kids are very young, and it's their first opportunity sometimes to see the school, and so I think, my understanding is that they're really well run and really well received, but I don't know. And again, Ed shaking his head, I think he would, from the building level, could support that.
Yeah, and if there's any indication, just by the amount of
Yeah.
the number of participants, that should be, because people are not going to pay for things that
Right.
their children don't like, or two, that they
That's
don't
good.
feel there's a good value.
Well, that and the repeat business. If we've had it for a couple of years, if we've got the same kids coming back, then I know it's okay. But, these numbers don't really reflect that. You don't know if it's...
Gone up or down, you mean, in terms of the enrollments? Actually, it's been very different because of the site work that we've done. I'm surprised we have this much participation, just because it is up from 2008. The number was lower then, and it's grown. I was surprised it was up to nearly 4,000. I think it was in the mid threes at that time, so it's up from that year. But we've been doing a lot of site work, and that's hampered the programs for many of them.
Well, I know the Park District doesn't always provide some of these same, programs.
Actually, they don't. They purposely
Right.
don't because they don't want to compete with us.
Right.
That's part of their
Right.
mission.
So, and this summer, we're not doing all that substantial site work.
No, well, not as much. We will have the pools shut down. Yeah, I don't think there's that much going on outside, right? There's no renovation. Yeah. Yeah, so outside it should be a little more open.
Okay.
Sure. Well, I think the underlying issue here is this needs to be at least a cost-neutral position for us, and we haven't raised the fees on this since 2008, and so this is something staff's looked at and said this is what we need to do to keep us in that cost-neutral position, and so I fully support.
I want to clear, this is not really just purely cash neutral, because it's 15% of it goes back to the building, so there really is that type of
Well, it's hard to measure.
Yeah. We don't charge it, they have no facility.
Wear and tear on the facilities and especially the pools. I mean, this is really, I think, a great value. At least I've perceived it as such, as my kids have utilized it, and hearing that these fees are still going to be very competitive with other offerings in the area. I'm very supportive. Mm-hmm. Quality stuff.
So do we have a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Julia moves, Michael seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Julia Beckman?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Rick Pavanato?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Keith Mattoon?
No.
Terry Pavasich?
Yes.
Nancy Kupka?
Aye. Thank you. Approval of special education transportation contract, regular
This is
school
Mark
term?
Stalen night.
Is it every night a Mark Stalen night?
Get a little spray for your throat.
And the SIP-TRAN contract is placed by CSD. It has run 5 years. It was transportation contracts typically run 3 plus 2 plus. And for our own regular transportation contract we had for many years, until a competing vendor sends a letter in, which they're very active people, you're able to just do one-year additions, and that's what CSD has recommended that we do. This is a very complex area. It's very difficult for them to put the bid out. They have 13 districts, plus us, 14 districts in total that they have to coordinate services for. They do it using zone rings, which can change with each contract so much. They try and get lock-in prices for a zone, a distance like a donut from each building, the total round-trip miles in rings, and charge different fees for those different zones. There also is a good amount, and I would say a very high amount, of special support services, medical support services, some cases. Sometimes we have one case where there's a nurse who rides with one of our students. And so these are things that we prefer not to disrupt unless we think there's reason to do that, some strong signal telling us we need to do that. If another vendor comes in and says, I want to bid on this job and it's past that 5-year mark, which could have happened this year but did not, that would be one thing we'd be mandated to go back out. And transportation is a competitive business, and I think if somebody was out there and felt that we were overpaying for these services and they could beat the price, I think they would put that letter in. So that's one positive signal for us to say, okay, we're pretty comfortable that we're paying a fair price for these services. And although it's a mitigating factor, and I don't want to make it sound like we don't care about the total cost, but 97% of this is picked up through state support. So the net cost to us is very small. And so that smallness of the $30,000 or so that we pay for these services, the net cost, we weigh that when we think about the disruption factor to the families. Sure. And so that's partly why we don't recommend, and we'd have to convince at least a majority of the other districts to go out and do it as well, and then put SACID through it again. Sam Kanata.
I don't think so.
It takes quite a bit of time because you have a lot of boards in different districts to coordinate information and timing of agreeing to go out to bid, and they all have to debate it, and it gets to be quite a process for them. So my recommendation, it's a cost of living CPI factor increase, which we think, and that's all that it's been since it started. So it's, we think, a very appropriate rate and good services. And that's the other piece, we've not had any significant feedback that the service is not good,
If I remember correctly, SACID did go with another vendor several years ago, and it did not work out very well.
Right, there was, I think I don't think it made it the whole 5 years.
Right.
I think it was broken in the middle, so.
I think
And that's a risk you take.
Pick it up.
Yeah,
They do a wonderful job.
so that's my recommendation. I'd like is the board to approve the extension for 1 year and authorize the administration to sign that agreement for 1 more year.
I'll move that.
Well, do we have any more discussion? Mike, did you have?
Well,
Okay.
you could
Did you feel
discuss it.
We've moved, we need a second.
Second.
More
Now there can be discussion. Sorry, Dr. Cup.
That's okay, that's fine. Did anybody else have more discussion? Okay, Julia moves, Terry seconds.
Julia Beckman,
Aye.
Terry Pavasich,
Aye.
Rick Pavanato,
Aye.
Deb Boyle,
Aye.
Mike Davenport,
Aye.
Keith Mattoon,
Aye.
Nancy Kupka.
Aye. So moving on to old business, policy committee report, second reading. Rick and Mike?
So we have second reading, and we haven't had any comments back from the first reading. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I brought my notes, but these were once again ISB recommended changes, and as is the case with the first reading, which would be under new business, there's every now and then there's a word or two that we as a committee feel we want to make an adjustment to, but otherwise this is 99.99% exactly what ISB is recommending. So we go over everything very carefully. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we would move that these policies be adopted.
I think you have to read each one.
Read them into the record, right? The numbers. Yeah.
Well, the recommended action is the motion to approve the board policies as presented. So the policy committee brings forward for second reading and approval 4.70 resource conservation, 4.90 school activity funds, 4.100 insurance management, 5.50 drug and alcohol-free workplace tobacco prohibition, 5.90 abused and neglected child reporting, 5.120 ethics and conduct, 6.60 curriculum content, 7.185 teen dating violence prohibited, and 8.25 advertising in schools.
You did it.
Second that.
Mike moves, Rick seconds. More discussion? Pretty sure we can take a voice vote on this one. Okay. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Moving on, policy report,
Right.
first reading.
First reading. So we have 3.60 principal, 4.150 leasing of property, and 4.160 environmental quality of buildings and grounds, and 4.170 emergencies. And we've looked these over and recommend that that you all take a good look too and get back to us with any comments or questions you might have. Be happy to answer any this evening too if you have any.
I actually do have a question.
Terrific.
Under, and it's more of a statement, under 4.170 safety, which I think is supposed to be emergencies, which makes more sense to me. We have this conglomeration. We've got a safety program, we've got convicted child sex offender, unsafe school choice option, and emergency closing. And I guess my point, I had two questions. Well, a question and a point. I guess my question has to do with the safety program. Is the law enforcement drill the somebody on campus?
I believe it is.
Okay. My other statement just is, it's just a lot of disparate things pulled together under one policy, and I just wonder if you were trying to look something up, where you would go to look it up.
Well, this is what the IASB recommends. A lot of this language, not all of it, because we did do some editing,
Right.
but a lot of this language came from their recommendation.
Yeah, my question is not so much as to the language as the, a policy manual, somebody's got to be able to find something in it.
Correct.
And I'm just wondering, would you be able to find the convicted child sex offender notification laws in?
Well, yeah, under safety, I was thinking the same thing. If you had them different policies, like the convicted sex offender should be a policy, so that people could find it. Yeah, I agree.
That's my only comment. So if you would take that back to the policy committee.
Will do.
Or call it something, or have sub-references or something, so that somebody could find it if they were looking for it in the policy manual. That's my point.
Well, the goal is for it to be easily located, and so consider that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, and we'll see those back for second read. Okay, this is our second reception of visitors. It's an opportunity to address the board on any issues. Seeing none, let's go through communication and announcements, and then afterwards, let's take just a few minutes and walk through that parking lot. So, Mr. Mattoon, Lend.
Thank you, Nancy. We have a meeting of LEND this Friday, and we will communicate the results thereafter.
Okay. Julia Sasson?
I believe I said at our last meeting, I wasn't able to attend the SACID meeting, but
That's
I
right.
do have a couple of talking points I'd like to just go over quickly, because there was a presentation on Southeast Alternative School, of which we are a participant. And it was an interesting presentation, which I'm sorry I missed. It was we have a new program administrator at SACID at that program, Andy Hubble, and he described his efforts to change the culture of the school, looking at both behavioral and academic supports. And his philosophy, I think, is very key. And every environment must be thought of as a learning environment. And he reported that to date, he had some statistics which were quite startling, I think. There have been 4 suspension days this year, as opposed to 82 in 2012-2013.
Wow.
And 4 calls for police support, as opposed to 137 last year. So, either it's a difference in bookkeeping, but apparently the board was quite impressed and really gave him quite a bit of credit. I will pursue that a little bit more, but whatever they're doing it right at SASD, and I wanted to let you know that. And also that the vocational team there, which focuses on giving students the tools they need to be successful after graduation. There is a program that starts in 8th grade, and students go on vocational field trips, and they develop skills needed to attain and stay in jobs, some of which are the student lunch worker program, and they become certified food sanitation workers. And there's been that dramatic improvement in suspension rates. So just wanted you to know that I think there's some good things happening there.
Thank you, Julia. How about the report on the Illinois Humanities Council?
I had another very brief report from there. They're one of the many programs that the Humanities Council has is something that they call the Collaborative City, which they invite people to apply for grants to provide programs in conjunction with the city of Chicago to be presented at the Cultural Center. But one of them, which is being presented tonight as we speak, is one on the Solar Energy Challenge, which is being presented by Argonne National Laboratory. So I wanted you to know that we're in there. There are many other things, of course, but that was a key one. I'm sorry we all missed it.
Thank you. The District 99 Education Foundation, Ms. Bassich?
Right now, we're just going over the Pizza Wars, and it was such a success that I believe we're going to be doing it again next year. And we are already soliciting vendors for that. So that is what we're doing.
Could we get some anchovies next year?
Anchovies.
Illinois Association of School Board?
Thank you, President Kupka. I'm happy to report that, yes, Member Beckman, Mrs. Pavicic, and myself all went to the Professional Development and Leadership Training last February, this past February 8th. It was on a Saturday from 8 to 3. When we left, it was extremely snowy and horrible.
Right.
So luckily we all got safe, but we all have our certificates, so we're all done. I believe that completes the board now. And then also one more thing to report, and that is the DuPage Division Spring Dinner Meeting, which is going to be on Thursday, March 6th.
Next week.
Yep.
Week from
And
Thursday.
hopefully everybody's going to be attending and is given their reservation to Julie. So those are the two things that were coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's just go briefly through the parking lot, the Joint Boards Conference.
Dr. Kupka, the superintendents of our associated school districts are meeting next Wednesday, March 5th in the afternoon. That will be an agenda item.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Health and safety. This was actually my item. I asked that we consider putting this on the strategic plan, improving
We haven't
students'
addressed that
health
yet.
and safety. Okay, we'll leave it on there. The calendar of board actions. We have a calendar of board actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And a SASD presentation. Did that come from you, Julia?
It did, and SASD meets Wednesday night. Would you like me to pursue whether or not Dr. Volpe could come within that? You can tell me what an appropriate date would be for us, and then I can pursue it.
Remind me what we were going to ask him to do. Just talk about
Just come and
SASD?
present an overall view with particular emphasis on what the services we use at District 99. It's been a few years since he was here, and there have been a lot of changes, a lot of wonderful changes in technology this year, too, that he might want to address with us. So, but it's up to the board or Dr. McDonald as to what our schedule is.
Did we ask you to take a look at what's coming up in our workshops? And
Well, we have been doing that, and I'll probably need to look at, we have a number of things we need to cover between
Right.
now and the summer.
Right.
And just as we're on the subject, it's part of the strategic plan to provide the board media training.
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Browning has contacted a consultant to do that training. It's probably a 2.5 hour event. And because it's so difficult to find a time in which to do that, my recommendation is going to be to use the May workshop meeting for that
Okay.
event. So that's going to take, for example, that's one
That's a
opportunity
workshop,
that
right.
we won't be able to have Dr. Volpe come. So, and there are several other important things that we
Sure.
need to cover between now and then with regard to the strategic plan, but I will certainly look at that in the next couple, by the time we meet again, I should have an answer to that.
And there's no pressing,
No,
I mean, it can
it's
go into
just
next
a matter
year.
of education.
Yeah.
And he does not need 2.5 hours. He usually can do it.
Right, and I would like to interject, when we get to the parking lot, I think this is something that, I guess in my nursing world, I would call triaging, right? And I do believe that we had, and as much as I would love to hear a SACID presentation too, but I think that we need to triage the things that are important. And after our conversation tonight even, okay, and hearing some concerns and 2 board members that voted no even on the fees, okay, not so much maybe that they disagreed with the fees, but we're looking at a larger picture. I would say that something like that certainly should be triaged on this parking lot, and we're going to need to start ranking them and taking them off. 'Cause I think that's an important one.
I think it's a
And we're all
very good
just
point.
agree. It was one of the reasons why I voted yes on it, was because we were going to be addressing it soon.
Yeah, well, we will be coming back shortly with this, so.
I like the strategy. I mean, it's preemptive, right? Before the parking lot grows too much and, yeah, I mean, that's, you're forward thinking. I think it's a good suggestion.
That's why you're going over it right now.
Yeah, just to see where we can even knock things off if we need to.
Of course.
Right.
Okay, anything else about the parking lot? Moving on, we have a March 10th meeting at South High Schools with student staff recognition and a board open house, 6:30 at South. It was originally going to be North, but now it's going to be South.
South High.
So just make sure everybody goes to South. March 12th will be a special staffing meeting at 7 p.m. and March 17th will be a business meeting at South.
Is there an issue with setting up for the elections on March 17th?
Well, that's why we're moving the meeting to South, because they
That's what I thought.
requested
Just
this
thought I'd clarify it.
set up the night before.
It's nice. I'm glad we're able to do that.
And it's St. Patrick's Day.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
You do? I'll second. And
I don't know
I'll
who
third it.
moved, but Mike third. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you all.